She walked into a room full of millionaires and told the CEO exactly what nobody else dared to say. The truth that would either destroy her career or define it. The elevator doors opened on the 42nd floor, and Jennifer stepped out into a world that smelled like expensive perfume and even more expensive ambition. The hotel ballroom stretched ahead of her, filled with crystal chandeliers that threw dancing lights across marble floors. She could hear the gentle clink of champagne glasses and the low murmur of important conversations happening all around her. Jennifer wasn't nervous. She had spent too many years getting to this moment to let nerves ruin it now. At 32 years old, she had worked her way up from answering phones at a small consulting firm to becoming one of their top performers. Tonight wasn't just another networking event. Tonight was the event that could change everything. She had chosen her outfit carefully that morning, standing in front of her closet for almost 20 minutes. The burgundy dress wasn't the most expensive thing she owned, but it fit her perfectly. More importantly, it made her feel powerful. And tonight, she needed all the power she could get. As she walked into the ballroom, she noticed how people's eyes followed her, not because she was the most beautiful woman there, though she knew she looked good. It was something else, something harder to define. It was the way she moved, like she belonged there, like she had every right to take up space in that room full of millionaires and decision-makers. Jennifer grabbed a glass of champagne from a passing waiter and took a small sip. She never drank much at these events. She needed to stay sharp. Her eyes scanned the room, taking in everything. There were the usual suspects, the old money crowd standing in their comfortable circles talking about golf and vacation homes. There were the young tech entrepreneurs, loud and confident, convinced they were going to change the world. And then there were people like her, the ones who had to fight for every single opportunity. Across the room, she spotted him, Robert Chen, the CEO of Tech Vision Industries. He was the reason she was here tonight. For the past 3 months, every consulting firm in the city had been competing to win his company's business. It was worth millions in fees, but more than that, it was a career maker. Whoever landed Robert Chen as a client would become a legend in the industry. Jennifer had done her research. She knew that Tech Vision was struggling. Even though most people didn't realize it yet, their stock price was still high. Their brand was still strong. But underneath all that polish, the company was starting to crack. Their newest products were flopping. Their best employees were leaving. And their competition was slowly eating away at their market share. She also knew that Robert Chen was tired of being lied to. He had hired 3 different consulting firms in the past 2 years, and all of them had told him what he wanted to hear, instead of what he needed to hear. They had taken his money, delivered pretty presentations, and nothing had actually changed. Jennifer wasn't going to make that mistake. She had a different approach in mind, one that would either make her career or destroy it. There was no middle ground tonight. She started working the room, but not in the obvious way. She didn't rush toward Robert Chen like some desperate salesperson. Instead, she talked to other people, the ones who orbited around him. His chief financial officer was standing near the bar, looking bored. Jennifer struck up a conversation about the industry, asking smart questions and actually listening to the answers. Within 10 minutes, she had learned 3 things that weren't in any official report. Next, she found one of Robert's board members, an older woman who had made her fortune in manufacturing. They talked about supply chain issues and the challenges of managing growth. The woman was impressed. Most people at these events just wanted to sell something or make an impression. Jennifer was actually interested in understanding the business. By the time Jennifer had made her way halfway around the room, she had built a network of allies without even trying. People remembered her because she was different. She wasn't trying too hard. She wasn't putting on a fake smile and pretending everything was perfect. She was real, and in a room full of people playing roles that made her stand out. Then she saw something that made her pause. Robert Chen was standing near the windows looking out at the city lights below. He had his phone in his hand, and even from across the room, Jennifer could see the tension in his shoulders. Something was wrong. He checked his phone again, his jaw tightening, and Jennifer knew this was her moment. But before she could move, someone else got there first. David Richardson, one of her colleagues from the firm. David was 45, well-connected, and had been in the business for 20 years. He was also her biggest competition for this account. Everyone expected David to win. He had the experience, the relationships, and the traditional approach that usually worked. Jennifer watched as David shook Robert's hand, all smiles and confidence. They talked for a few minutes, David doing most of the talking, his hands moving as he made his pitch. Robert nodded politely, but Jennifer could see he wasn't really engaged. His mind was somewhere else, probably on whatever was happening on his phone. She waited. Patience was part of the game. David eventually walked away, looking pleased with himself, probably thinking he had just sealed the deal. Other people approached Robert, wanting their moment with the important CEO. Jennifer stayed back, observing, waiting for the right time. It came about 30 minutes later. The crowd had thinned out a bit as people moved toward the dinner tables. Robert was alone again, this time standing near one of the tall pillars that held up the ballroom ceiling. He looked tired. Not just physically tired, but emotionally exhausted, like he was carrying a weight that was getting heavier every day. Jennifer took a breath and walked over. Her heart was beating faster now, but her face remained calm. This was it. Everything she had worked for, all the late nights and sacrifices and moments of doubt, had led to this conversation. She didn't start with a pitch or a compliment or any of the usual business small talk. Instead, she said something that surprised even herself. She told him the truth. And in that moment, standing in that expensive ballroom with all those important people around them, Jennifer made a choice that would change everything. Jennifer didn't waste time with pleasantries. She looked Robert Chen directly in the eye and said, "Your company is in trouble, and I think you know it." Robert's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Surprise, maybe, or interest. Most people spent their time telling him how great his company was, how brilliant his strategy was, how lucky everyone was to work with him. Jennifer was doing the opposite. "Excuse me?" he said, his voice careful and measured. "Tech vision," Jennifer continued, keeping her voice low so others wouldn't hear. 6 quarters ago, you were the industry leader. Now you're barely holding on to 3rd place. Your newest product launch failed to meet projections by 40%. Your employee turnover rate has doubled in the past year. And your biggest competitor just hired away 3 of your top engineers. Robert's jaw tightened. For a moment, Jennifer wondered if she had made a terrible mistake. Maybe she had been too bold, too direct. Maybe she had just ended her career before it could really begin. But then Robert did something unexpected. He smiled. Not a polite business smile, but a real one, the kind that reaches the eyes. "You've done your homework," he said quietly. "I always do," Jennifer replied. "And I'm guessing that every consultant you've talked to tonight has told you everything is fine, that you just need to adjust your marketing strategy or restructure your sales team or some other surface-level fix." Robert laughed, a short, bitter sound. "You have no idea. I've sat through more presentations in the past 6 months than I care to count. Everyone wants to tell me what I want to hear. Nobody wants to tell me the truth. The truth hurts," Jennifer said, "but lies hurt more. They just take longer to kill you." Robert studied her for a long moment. Around them, the gala continued. People laughing and networking and playing their roles. But in their small corner of the room, something real was happening. "Okay," Robert said finally. "You have my attention. What's your diagnosis?" Jennifer had prepared for this moment. But now that it was here, she felt the weight of it. She could play it safe, give him a gentle version of the truth. Or she could go all in. She went all in. "Your problem isn't your products or your marketing," she said. "It's your culture. Your leadership team is stuck in the past. They're making decisions based on what worked 5 years ago, not what works now. Your best people are leaving because they see a company that's losing its way. Your innovation has dried up because everyone's too afraid to take risks, and the people at the top are more interested in protecting their positions than saving the company." It was harsh. It was brutal. And judging by the look on Robert's face, it was exactly what he needed to hear. "Go on," he said quietly. "Your senior vice president of operations," Jennifer continued. "He's been with you for 12 years. Everyone loves him. He's loyal, experienced, trusted. He's also the reason your product development timeline has doubled. He kills every innovative idea that comes across his desk because he's afraid of failure. He's created a culture where people would rather do nothing than risk making a mistake." Robert's eyes widened slightly. "How do you know about him?" "I talked to 15 of your former employees over the past month," Jennifer said. "Not officially, just casual conversations. They all said the same thing. Great company, great mission, terrible execution, and they all pointed to the same problem. Before Robert could respond, David Richardson appeared beside them, his smile wide and confident. "Robert, wonderful to see you," David said, completely ignoring Jennifer. "I wanted to follow up on our conversation earlier. I think Morrison and Blake Consulting can offer exactly what TechVision needs. Traditional values, proven methods, guaranteed results." Jennifer saw Robert's expression close off, becoming polite and distant again. The moment was slipping away. "David makes a compelling case," Robert said diplomatically. "His approach is certainly safe." "Safe," Jennifer repeated. "Is that what you need right now, safety? Because from where I'm standing, playing it safe is what got you into this mess." David's smile faltered. "Jennifer, perhaps this isn't the time or place. When is the time?" Jennifer interrupted, keeping her eyes on Robert. "After another failed product launch? After your stock price drops another 20%? After your board loses confidence and starts looking for your replacement?" The words hung in the air between them. David looked shocked. Robert looked thoughtful, and Jennifer felt her heart pounding in her chest, knowing she had just crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. "I think you should leave this conversation to the adults," David said, his voice tight with barely controlled anger. But Robert held up a hand. "Actually, I'd like to hear more from Jennifer." "David, would you excuse us?" David's face went red, but he couldn't argue with a direct dismissal. He walked away, his shoulders stiff with wounded pride. Jennifer knew she had just made an enemy, but she had also won something more valuable: Robert's full attention. "You're taking a big risk," Robert said once they were alone again. "Talking to me like this, challenging someone senior to you in front of me. Either you're very confident or very foolish." "Maybe both," Jennifer admitted. "But I'm also right, and I think you know it." Robert pulled out his phone and showed her the screen. It was an email from his head of sales, informing him that their biggest client had just decided not to renew their contract. "Millions of dollars gone. This came in 20 minutes ago," Robert said quietly. "And you're right. Everyone here tonight wants to tell me everything is fine. But it's not fine. It hasn't been fine for a long time." Jennifer felt something shift in that moment. This wasn't just about winning a client anymore. This was about actually helping someone who needed it. "Give me a chance," she said. 6 weeks. Full access to your company. Let me prove that I can do more than just talk." Robert was quiet for a long moment, thinking. Around them, people were starting to move toward the dining area. The formal part of the evening was about to begin. "Okay," Robert said finally. 6 weeks. But I want real answers, not consulting nonsense. And if you fail, you're done. Not just with TechVision, but in this industry. I'll make sure everyone knows." It was a threat and an opportunity wrapped together. Jennifer nodded. "I won't fail." As Robert walked away to join the other guests for dinner, Jennifer stood there processing what had just happened. She had done it. She had won the impossible account. But now came the hard part, actually delivering on her promise. Across the room, she saw David watching her, his expression cold. She had made him look bad in front of a major client. He wouldn't forget that. And he would do everything in his power to see her fail. Jennifer finished her champagne and smiled to herself. Let him try. She had spent her whole life proving people wrong. This would be no different. The first day at TechVision Industries felt like walking into a war zone. Jennifer arrived at 7 in the morning, carrying her laptop and a notebook filled with questions. The building was impressive, all glass and steel, with the company logo displayed prominently in the lobby. Everything looked successful on the surface, but Jennifer knew better. She had learned to look beneath the surface. Robert had been true to his word. He had sent an email to the entire leadership team, introducing Jennifer and explaining that she would have full access to everything. He had made it clear that everyone was expected to cooperate. The email was professional and direct, but Jennifer could read between the lines. Robert was putting his authority behind her, and that made her both powerful and dangerous. The conference room where she set up was on the 15th floor, with windows overlooking the city. It was supposed to be her workspace for the next 6 weeks, but it felt more like a fishbowl. Everyone who walked by could see her. Some people nodded politely. Others pretended not to notice her. A few stared with open hostility. Jennifer's first meeting was with the Senior Vice President of Operations, a man named Thomas who had been with the company for 12 years. He arrived exactly on time, which Jennifer appreciated. He was in his 50s with gray hair and an expensive suit. He had the look of someone who had been successful for so long that he had forgotten what failure felt like. "So you're the consultant," Thomas said, sitting down across from her. His tone wasn't hostile, but it wasn't friendly either. It was the tone of someone who had dealt with hundreds of consultants before and didn't expect anything different this time. "I am," Jennifer said simply. "Thank you for meeting with me." "I didn't have much choice," Thomas replied. Robert made it clear that cooperation isn't optional. Jennifer decided to be direct. She had learned that playing games with people like Thomas was a waste of time. "I know you don't want me here. I know you think this is a waste of time, but I'm going to be here for 6 weeks whether you like it or not. So we can either work together, or we can work against each other. Which do you prefer?" Thomas seemed surprised by her directness. He studied her for a moment, reassessing. "What exactly are you trying to accomplish?" "I'm trying to figure out why a company that should be dominating the industry is barely holding on," Jennifer said. "And from what I've learned so far, a lot of the problems seem to trace back to your department." Now Thomas looked angry. "My department has been the backbone of this company for over a decade. We have processes, systems, quality control measures that have kept this company running smoothly through multiple market changes. And those same processes are now killing your innovation," Jennifer said calmly. "Your product development timeline used to be 6 months. Now it's 14 months. Your competitors are moving faster. They're adapting quicker, and you're still doing things the way you did them 5 years ago." Thomas stood up, his face red. "I don't have to listen to this. You've been here for an hour and you think you understand everything about how this company works?" "No," Jennifer said, remaining seated and calm. "I don't understand everything. That's why I'm asking questions. But I do know that something isn't working. And I know that if things don't change, this company won't survive another 2 years." The words hung in the air between them. Thomas stared at her, anger and something else in his eyes. Fear, maybe, or recognition, because deep down he probably knew she was right. "I've given my whole career to this company," Thomas said quietly. "Everything I've built, every system I've created, it was all to protect what we had, to maintain quality, to keep us stable." "I understand that," Jennifer said, her voice gentler now. "But stability without growth is just another word for decline. The world is changing. Your competitors are changing. And if Tech Vision doesn't change too, all those systems you built won't matter because there won't be a company left to protect." Thomas sat back down slowly. He suddenly looked older, tired. "What do you want from me?" "The truth," Jennifer said. "Help me understand how things really work here. Not the official version, not the story you tell in board meetings. The real version, the problems that everyone knows about but nobody wants to talk about." Over the next 3 hours, Thomas talked. At first, he was defensive, protective of his department and his decisions. But gradually, as Jennifer listened without judgment, he started to open up. He told her about the proposals that had been rejected, the innovative ideas that had been killed, the young employees who had left because they felt stifled. He told her about the pressure from above to maintain profits, the fear of taking risks, the slow drift away from the bold thinking that had made the company successful in the first place. By the time the meeting ended, Jennifer had filled 20 pages in her notebook. She had also gained something valuable, an ally. Thomas wasn't completely on her side yet, but he was no longer her enemy. He had given her information that would be crucial in the weeks ahead. The rest of that first week was a blur of meetings, interviews, and late nights analyzing data. Jennifer talked to everyone she could: engineers, salespeople, mid-level managers, administrative staff. She asked them the same questions over and over. What's working? What's not working? What would you change if you could? And a pattern started to emerge. Everyone could see the problems. Everyone knew what needed to change, but nobody felt empowered to actually do anything about it. The company had created a culture where following the rules was more important than getting results, where looking good in meetings mattered more than actually solving problems, where people would rather stay silent than risk being wrong. Jennifer worked 18-hour days, surviving on coffee and determination. She barely slept, barely ate. Her apartment became just a place to shower and change clothes. Everything else was about the work, but she wasn't alone. She kept in touch with Robert through daily email updates. He never interfered, never questioned her methods. He just waited, trusting that she would deliver. That trust felt heavy, like a responsibility she couldn't afford to fail. Meanwhile, David Richardson was making his move. Jennifer heard through the office gossip that he was having lunch meetings with board members, positioning himself as the experienced alternative if Jennifer's approach didn't work. He was being subtle about it, but the message was clear. He was ready to step in the moment she stumbled. 3 weeks into the project, Jennifer discovered something that changed everything. She was going through financial reports late one night, cross-referencing expense accounts with project outcomes, when she noticed something strange. There were significant budget overruns in Thomas's department, but they weren't showing up in the official reports. Money was being spent, but it was being categorized in ways that hid the real costs. Jennifer dug deeper, requesting more detailed records. And what she found made her stomach turn. Thomas wasn't just resistant to change because he was old-fashioned. He was covering up mistakes. Expensive mistakes that had cost the company millions. Failed projects that had been hidden, written off as research and development. Contracts with vendors who were overcharging because they had personal relationships with Thomas. Nothing illegal technically, but definitely unethical, and definitely hurting the company. Jennifer sat in her empty conference room at 2 a.m, staring at the evidence spread across her desk. This was the moment she had been dreading. She had found the truth, but exposing it would destroy Thomas. It would also make powerful enemies. Thomas was beloved in the company. People trusted him. Accusing him of anything would make her look like an outsider attacking someone who had given their career to TechVision. But staying silent would mean the problems would continue. Robert would implement whatever recommendations she made. But if the root cause wasn't addressed, nothing would really change. Jennifer thought about her career, about everything she had worked for. She thought about the easy path, the safe path, the path that would let her avoid conflict. And then she thought about why she had gotten into this business in the first place. Not to play it safe, not to avoid difficult truths, but to actually help companies solve their real problems. She picked up her phone and typed an email to Robert. It was time to make a choice that couldn't be undone. The morning of the board presentation arrived like a storm Jennifer had seen coming but couldn't avoid. She stood in front of her bathroom mirror, trying to decide what to wear. Usually she would choose something powerful, something that made a statement. Today she chose something simple and professional. Today wasn't about her. It was about the truth. Jennifer had spent the previous week preparing her presentation. Every claim was backed by data. Every recommendation was supported by evidence. She had interviewed over 50 employees, analyzed hundreds of documents, and built a case that was impossible to argue with. But she also knew that facts didn't always win. Sometimes politics and relationships mattered more than truth. David Richardson would be presenting right before her. Robert had insisted on hearing both approaches, comparing them side by side. It was smart management, but it also meant that Jennifer would have to follow whatever pitch David delivered. She would have to respond to his ideas while presenting her own. The boardroom at TechVision was on the top floor, with floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a panoramic view of the city. The long table could seat 20 people, and today it was full. Robert sat at the head of the table, his expression neutral. Around him were board members, investors, and the company's senior leadership team. Thomas was there too, sitting near the back, avoiding Jennifer's eyes. David started his presentation with confidence. He talked about sustainable growth strategies and incremental optimization. His slides were polished and professional. His recommendations were safe. Restructure the sales team, invest in better marketing, improve customer service processes. Nothing groundbreaking, nothing risky, nothing that would upset anyone in the room. Jennifer watched the board members nod approvingly. This was the kind of presentation they were comfortable with. It confirmed what they already believed, that the problems were minor and easily fixed with traditional business solutions. In conclusion, David said, clicking to his final slide, TechVision doesn't need revolutionary change. What it needs is evolutionary improvement, small, careful steps that build on the strong foundation that's already in place. Thank you. The room applauded politely. Robert thanked David and then turned to Jennifer. Your turn. Jennifer stood up and walked to the front of the room. She had decided not to use slides. Instead, she had printed packets for everyone, with all her research and recommendations. She distributed them around the table, feeling the weight of everyone's eyes on her. "Thank you for the opportunity to present," she began. "I've spent the past 5 weeks studying tech vision from the inside. I've talked to your employees, analyzed your processes, reviewed your finances, and examined your culture. And I'm going to tell you something that nobody wants to hear. David is wrong." The room went silent. A few board members looked shocked. David's face turned red. "Tech vision doesn't need incremental improvements," Jennifer continued. "You need fundamental transformation, because the problems you're facing aren't about marketing or sales or customer service. They're about leadership, culture, and accountability." She opened her packet to the first page. "Let's start with the numbers. Over the past 3 years, your product development costs have increased by 68%, while your output has decreased by 42%. You're spending more and producing less. Why? Because your innovation process is broken." Jennifer looked directly at Thomas. "Your operations department has become a bottleneck. Every new idea has to go through 17 different approval stages. The average time from concept to market has gone from 6 months to over a year. Your competitors are launching products in 4 months. You're losing because you're too slow." Thomas shifted uncomfortably in his seat, but Jennifer didn't stop. "But it's worse than just being slow. You're also hiding failures. Over the past 2 years, there have been 6 major projects that were canceled after significant investment. Those failures cost the company over $15 million. But instead of learning from them, instead of figuring out what went wrong, they were buried, written off as research and development, hidden in budget categories where nobody would notice them. Now people were paying attention. Board members were flipping through their packets, finding the documentation Jennifer had included. "Who knew about this?" one board member asked, looking at Robert. "I didn't," Robert said quietly, his eyes fixed on Thomas. Jennifer felt no satisfaction in exposing Thomas. She actually felt sorry for him. He had spent his career building something and now she was tearing it down. But this was necessary. This was the truth. "I'm not here to attack anyone," Jennifer said, her voice softer now. "Thomas isn't a bad person. He's not corrupt or malicious. He's someone who was trying to protect what he built. But in trying to avoid failure, he created a system where innovation became impossible, where people were afraid to take risks, where the company slowly lost its competitive edge." Thomas stood up suddenly. "This is ridiculous. You've been here 5 weeks and you think you understand everything? I've given 12 years to this company. I've kept it running through recessions, through market changes, through everything. And now some consultant comes in and tells everyone I'm the problem." The room erupted. Some people started talking at once. David was smiling, probably thinking, this was Jennifer's career ending right in front of him. Robert held up his hand for silence. "Thomas, sit down," Robert said firmly. "Let her finish." Thomas sat, but his anger filled the room like smoke. Jennifer took a breath and continued. "The question isn't who to blame. The question is what to do next. And that's what the rest of my presentation is about." For the next hour, Jennifer walked the board through her recommendations. They were radical, uncomfortable, and exactly what the company needed. Restructure the operations department. Implement agile development processes. Create innovation teams with real authority. Establish clear accountability metrics. And most controversial of all, remove leaders who couldn't adapt to the new approach. "This will be painful," Jennifer said honestly. "People will lose their jobs. Processes that have existed for years will be eliminated. Comfortable patterns will be disrupted. But if you don't do this, if you keep trying to make small improvements to a broken system, tech vision won't exist in 3 years. Your competitors will take your market share. Your best employees will leave and your company will become irrelevant." She closed her packet and looked around the room. "David offered you safety. I'm offering you survival. The choice is yours." The board deliberated for 2 hours. Jennifer and David waited in separate rooms, not speaking, not looking at each other. Jennifer felt numb. She had done everything she could. She had told the truth, backed it up with evidence, and offered a clear path forward. Now it was out of her hands. Finally, Robert came to get her. His expression was unreadable. "The board has made their decision," he said. Jennifer followed him back to the boardroom. Her heart was pounding, but her face remained calm. "We've voted," the board chairwoman said. 8-4 in favor of Jennifer's approach. Jennifer felt relief wash over her, but she kept her expression professional. She had won, but she also knew that winning the vote was just the beginning. Now came the hard part, actually making it work. The first month of implementation was chaos. Jennifer had expected resistance, but she hadn't anticipated just how difficult change would be. Thomas resigned 2 days after the board vote, sending an email to the entire company about how consultants were destroying everything he had built. Some employees sided with him, seeing Jennifer as an outsider who didn't understand the company's culture. Others were excited, finally seeing a chance for things to improve. Jennifer worked harder than she ever had in her life. She was at the office by 6 every morning and rarely left before midnight. She helped hire new managers, trained teams on agile processes, and dealt with countless small crises that erupted as the old way of doing things collided with the new. Robert gave her more authority than she had expected. He made her a temporary executive advisor, which meant she could make decisions without running everything by him first. It was empowering and terrifying at the same time. David Richardson tried to undermine her at every opportunity. He spread rumors that her changes were causing more problems than they solved. He pointed out every mistake, every delay, every complaint. He was waiting for her to fail so he could step in with his "I told you so" moment. But Jennifer didn't fail. Slowly, carefully, with a lot of hard work and some lucky breaks, things started to improve. The new innovation teams launched their first product in just 4 months, beating the old timeline by more than half. Employee satisfaction scores started climbing. The best engineers who had been considering leaving decided to stay. There were setbacks too. One major project failed despite all the new processes. A key manager quit, taking 3 good people with him. A product launch had technical problems that delayed it by 2 weeks. Jennifer learned that transformation wasn't a straight line from problem to solution. It was messy, complicated, and full of unexpected challenges. 6 months after that boardroom presentation, Jennifer was sitting in her office late one evening when Robert knocked on her door. "Got a minute?" he asked. "Of course," Jennifer said, gesturing for him to sit down. Robert handed her a tablet showing a financial report. Latest quarterly results just came in. Revenue is up 18%. Profit margins are the best they've been in 3 years. Stock price has climbed 22%. Jennifer smiled. "That's great news." "It's more than great news," Robert said. "It's a miracle. 6 months ago, I was facing pressure from the board to step down. Now they're talking about how I turned the company around." He paused. "But we both know who really did the work." "It was a team effort," Jennifer said diplomatically. "Don't be modest," Robert replied. "You did something that nobody else was willing to do. You told me the truth when everyone else was lying. You made the hard decisions when it would have been easier to play it safe. And you delivered results." Jennifer felt a warmth in her chest that had nothing to do with professional success. She had proven something to herself over these past months. She had proven that her approach worked, that being authentic and direct was better than playing political games. "I got a call from Morrison and Blake yesterday," Robert continued. "They want to make you their youngest senior partner ever. Apparently, word has gotten around about what you accomplished here." It was the goal Jennifer had been working toward for years. Senior partner meant security, status, and the kind of career success most people only dreamed about. She should have been excited. "That's wonderful," she said, trying to sound enthusiastic. Robert studied her. "You don't sound very excited." Jennifer sighed. "Can I be honest with you? You've never been anything else with me," Robert said with a smile. "I thought that becoming senior partner was what I wanted," Jennifer said slowly. "I thought that was the measure of success. But these past few months actually working here, actually making a difference, actually seeing the impact of the changes we made, that felt more meaningful than any title ever could." Robert was quiet for a moment. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that I don't want to go back to being a consultant," Jennifer said, surprising herself with how sure she sounded. "I don't want to parachute into companies, make recommendations, and then leave. I want to be part of building something real." "Are you asking me for a job?" Robert asked, his eyes twinkling with amusement. "Maybe I am," Jennifer admitted. "If you're offering one," Robert laughed. "I've been trying to figure out how to convince you to stay for the past month. I was planning a whole pitch about how you'd have more freedom here, more impact, more opportunity to do meaningful work. You don't need to convince me, Jennifer said. I'm convinced. And just like that, Jennifer's career took a turn she never saw coming. She didn't become senior partner at Morrison & Blake. Instead, she became chief transformation officer at TechVision, with a mandate to continue the work she had started. David Richardson sent her a congratulatory email that was professionally polite and personally bitter. But Jennifer didn't care about David anymore. She had stopped measuring her success by how she compared to others. She was measuring it by whether she was doing work that mattered. The next 2 years were challenging in different ways. Jennifer led the company through a major acquisition, launched a new product line that became their most successful offering, and built a reputation as someone who could transform struggling companies. Other CEOs started calling her, asking for advice, wanting to hire her away from TechVision. But Jennifer stayed, because she had learned something important during that night at the gala, when she first walked into a room full of powerful people and decided to be herself rather than play a role. She had learned that real confidence doesn't come from commanding attention or playing political games or trying to impress people. It comes from knowing your worth, speaking your truth, and doing work that matters. Jennifer thought back to that burgundy dress and the woman who had worn it into the gala. She had believed that owning the room meant making people notice her, making them respect her presence. But she had learned something better. Owning the room meant being so authentic, so competent, so genuinely committed to making a difference that respect came naturally. She still walked into rooms with confidence. She still turned heads when she entered. But now it wasn't about her appearance or her presence. It was about the reputation she had built through years of hard work, difficult decisions, and unwavering integrity. And on the nights when she doubted herself, when the challenges seemed too big and the obstacles too difficult, she would remember that boardroom presentation. She would remember choosing truth over safety, courage over comfort, and she would remember that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply be yourself, even when everyone expects you to be someone else. That lesson changed her career, but more importantly, it changed her life.